Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Insurance Nexus's webinar on convincing customers you are the only worthy insurer by marketing true value. I'm very happy to be welcoming three contributors this afternoon. Janthana Kaenprakhamroy, CEO of Tapali, Dylan Bourguignon, CEO of Social, and also Greg Donaldson, Senior Analyst at the Aite Group. So what is the idea here? Well, we know that insurers have never offered such exciting products or services, or at least they should be doing, right? After all, it's more possible than ever to discover exactly what your target market looks like, their behaviors, their demands, and the patterns of their modern lifestyles. And by doing so, and from that starting point, build an insurance product or service that is in tune with their needs. So it is possible. It's not necessarily simple. However, we're very lucky to have two CEOs with us today that have proven that offering great product on flexible terms, with transparent, simple service, it does make a difference. The next challenges, and the ones we'll be focusing more so on today, are based around communicating the value of this product to the market. So a great product that simply lies silent in the dark is useless, but people really need to hear about it. The right people need to hear about it, and crucially, they need to understand why this product is so good for them. After all, it was developed with them in mind, and also why they should bother changing their behavior and making an effort to go out there and commit to it. Perhaps some individuals have to switch providers, perhaps they've never bought insurance before, or this might be the first time someone's reached out and told them this is a good idea. So let's talk around that topic with the contributors. Really, the realization of great product delivery through excellent communication of value to the customer. And it's with pleasure I'll pass over to our moderator for today's session, Greg Donaldson. And just before I do, I would remind everybody that we do take questions in the second half of the session. So if you submit them now, we can line them up for the guys to take during the webinar. So Greg, over to you.
Thank you, Graham. I appreciate the introduction. And one of the things that I've had the fortune of being able to look into during my time as a research analyst and experience in the industry is the transformation of how insurance companies relate to their customers. Traditionally, insurance has not been a high customer service, customer interaction business, but with technology and with some of the new use cases coming around today, that is changing. What we're hoping to achieve today is to really expose you to a couple of very key use cases of ways in which companies are interacting with customers in new ways so that you can take some of these experiences back with you and apply those to your own businesses and your own carriers. So to start us off, I'd like to turn it over to Dylan to tell us a little bit about Insurer and talk about the solutions that they have in place.
Thanks, Greg. So I'm Dylan Bourguignon, I'm the founder of Social, and what we set out to do is restore consumer trust in insurance, and we do so by providing customers an amazing experience if they were to claim, and if they don't claim, they can get up to 80% money back every year. I suppose the reason we actually created Social in the first place was precisely because the levels of trust in insurance companies was remarkably low. And what triggered me was a 2013 Edelman survey where consumers trusted insurance less than did banks. And banks, have been blamed for the financial crisis, which only had happened 5 years prior. And it really shook me, considering that insurance is a promise that when things go bad, your back's covered. And then when you started kind of trying to understand that problem better, consumers just feel that they're not really getting value, and when they claim, it's a painful process. So that's where it started for our kind of tenet number one, which is amazing if you need us. And so what we've done is just we started with mobile phone insurance, but our ambitions are global across consumer lines. And with regards to even our first product, we really kind of designed it around the consumer. But bottom up. So that's meant that it's very clear and transparent when you purchase, when you claim. The policy terms and conditions are clear and transparent. 9-year-olds can understand them. So when you claim, you're not having bad surprises of small print or exclusions that you didn't expect. And we've redesigned the kind of the consumer experience for the claims, which means that we can settle claims within 24, 72 hours. As opposed to most of our competition seems to be doing between 4 and 18 days on average, which when you think about this day and age and the fact that consumers are used to being able to buy things on demand and get things delivered the next day, the fact that a claim can take so long is an anathema for consumers. And then the other element is, of course, our social insurance model, which allows us to give up to 80% money back to our customers if they and their friends haven't claimed. And so that really is kind of creating a new model of insurance. So it's not just about adopting technology; it's also adopting a new model, which is again consumer centric. Because we started and designed our proposition around the consumer, I suppose that the marketing and communicating becomes a lot easier because we know specifically how we are differentiated and why we are differentiated. We've got a broader cover than most of our competition, and that's to adapt to the existing market dynamics. And we also have a better proposition, competitively priced, and you can get a money back, which sounds like a great deal for our customers. So it becomes about, I think this is the same for any digital business or a business which or in tech world, is who your customers are and what they really resonate with amongst the different USPs that you may have, and make sure that you are targeting them in the right channels in the right way, but being very clear about who you really are targeting and what really appeals to them. So then the question that Greg kind of highlighted was around so how do you engage new customers who wouldn't have actually engaged with your brand in the first place? And I think it becomes, we then, for many young people, actually understanding the value of insurance is a step number one. I think there was some interesting research that AXA had done around consumers, and young consumers don't necessarily have actually been exposed to insurance on the high street because retail brokers are no longer as present as they would have been 20, 30 years ago. And so if you don't grow up with insurance in your everyday life, then you need to kind of be introduced to it. And so there's kind of communication that needs to be taking place to actually educate that customer. But then I suppose that's kind of a segment of the market, and that education can go across different channels, whether kind of social in particular or not. And then with regards to changing providers, which was the other point that was raised, if your proposition is more compelling than your neighbors, it becomes a lot easier to get them to switch. So I think that's about being able to, here again, communicate very clearly what are the key USPs that you've got over your competition, and targeting that customer base at a quite granular level to ensure that you are resonating with them.
Okay, so that's basically an overview there. Dylan, do you have any commentary around how would I know one of the things that you talked about was designing your business, placing the customer first. A lot of the insurance industry is built up already and was formed with different ideas in mind. So do you have any thoughts around how would you convert a business that is already established and already out there? What steps should somebody consider before they tried to introduce a customer first marketing focus if that wasn't the original intent when the business was built?
Great question. I suppose it's the million-dollar question for most consultants, I suspect. I have a lot of empathy for the insurance incumbents. It's it was built in a different era, and unfortunately, over the last 50 years, they haven't actually kind of evolved to be more consumer-centric and still have what the industry, kind of industrial businesses used to have back in the 1950s, which is we build a product and then we have to go and get people to shift it for us. So, and that's you have to transition from a product-focused organization where the center of power tends to be with the underwriters who don't have that consumer-centric perspective, but more of a actuarial and balance sheet return perspective, to then have actually a consumer-centric perspective, which marketing and distribution front lines have got, but unfortunately you need to shift the mindset and the culture of the organization to actually give them the power rather than the underwriting, which actually produces a product. And I think because just saying, oh well, make sure you've got a team that is focusing on the consumer, that's all very well, but I think it's a more entrenched, deeply rooted cultural aspect which exists in most organizations. And maybe actually the audience will have different views on this. I'd love to hear that, but that's my understanding of why it's so hard for even marketeers to actually have that ability and that voice to kind of say, no, take out that exclusion, because guess what, my customer base really doesn't like that type of exclusion. They need to be covered for that. So find a different way of addressing that issue.
Excellent. So thank you very much for your input. So what I think we'd like to do now is go ahead and turn it over to Janthana to give her an opportunity to talk a little bit about Tappily, and then after that we'll open it up for even more questions. So Janthana, take it away.
Thank you, Greg. My name is Janthana. I'm the CEO of Tappily Insurance on Tap. We are an insurance intermediary. Part of our service is to offer on-demand and flexible insurance cover to consumers, and that could be anything from SMEs to individual freelancers, as well as we offer our system to the incumbents to encourage them to offer more on-demand insurance. So basically what we are doing as an intermediary is to stimulate the supply for on-demand insurance products, and then on the other hand, we match those products with consumers who really, really need them. And luckily, we focus on the sharing economy, which is currently underserved by existing insurance policies, which means the conversion is higher. And we rarely, up until now, I do not have problem with finding customers. As a matter of fact, we've got a business worth of 18 million today, which I need to find capacity provider for. So therefore, converting customer to buying our product and buy into it is already there, purely because the reason why we exist or we start our business in the first place is because I know that I need this product myself, and it derived from my own personal experience of trying to find on-demand insurance for my Airbnb listing and couldn't find it. And obviously within the sharing economy, we've got different group of people who need different type of on-demand insurance products. But currently we are focusing on commercial insurance products, and that means professional indemnity, liability. We offer cyber and other products that's very, very essential for businesses and freelancers to cover their work-related risks.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Any other, so let me ask you the same question that I asked Dylan a moment ago about as you, because as companies start to think about shifting their focus from an underwriting focus, to use Dylan's term, to a more customer-centric focus, do you have any thoughts around maybe the best steps to take if you're in that position?
Are we talking about marketing perspective, like target customer? I think, from our perspective, obviously, our product is built to be able to solve customer needs. The entire Tapley value proposition derived from customer experience and what customer wants. We work very closely with customers that we develop product for. So obviously, we've been through a few accelerator programs, and each time we really do diligence on the product that we target our customer. So already, a lot of our product and processes were based on best practice. What we see is, that's what the customer wants. For example, we offer very easy user interface for customers to be able to get cover at, little as 60 seconds, for example, and the price are very competitive. Customers can customize their own limits and products and the length or the durations of their contract. All of this flexibility that we built into it that customer wants. And to be honest, customer doesn't really, it's not very complicated to work out what customer wants. They just want to make sure that they are covered for the risk that they take. They want, an easy and convenient way to get insurance, and they want it at a reasonable price. And that's what our consumer wants. And so it's not, it's not data scientists to work out what we need to do to be able to deliver that.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So now I think we have a couple of different questions that are starting to come in. So for those of you out in the audience listening, I encourage you, please send in whatever questions you have, and we will try to get to all of those. The first question we have is actually to Dylan specifically, but Janthana, you can probably weigh in once Dylan has kind of had his answer. Dylan, did you grab your marketing experts and that marketing methodology from the insurance sector, or did you go outside of the insurance sector to kind of get your marketing approach for your company?
We've taken everything outside of insurance. If insurance had it right, we wouldn't have the problem we have at the moment of consumers not trusting insurance. So that meant that except for pure technical aspects such as underwriting, where you really need to understand what you're doing, everything, so the policy being designed around the consumer, the customer experience when you purchase, when you claim, all that is all the people who are designing this amongst our team. None of them did insurance before.
Excellent. Janthana, do you have any thoughts around that?
Yes, we basically did the opposite. We studied the insurance business or insurance market. We benchmarked our performance with the best performer online. We work out basically what their strategy and what make them the best performers, and we replicate their strategy. So that's basically how we do it. So we don't reinventing the wheel, but we practically just trying to run or just trying to replicate the best marketing strategy that already exists. So that's basically from social media. But from the sales side, of course, as the China economy is very much new, there isn't kind of a quick and clear route to market. But in this aspect, I prefer affiliate partnerships, and I think building trust and building community and network is what Tapley do best, and I think it's kind of served us well. A lot of customer that we've got today is through referral and through partnership.
And do you think that the referral aspect, do you think that that's strengthened because of the approach that you're taking?
Absolutely. I mean, because remember, you risk select your customer as well. In this case, we would be able to do two things. One is to build the portfolios of customers very, very quickly, so the distribution is there. The second is to reselect them, because we want to make sure that we underwrite risk responsibly. So we want to know who our customers are, and the best way is to be part of community so that we know who we insured. I think that's the best way for us.
Okay, perfect.
And it works really well, yeah.
So the next question that I have is actually for both of you. So Dylan, I'll ask you to start. So a lot of incumbent insurers are struggling with the quote customer-centric culture. It's, that's kind of a buzzword, but in general, we're talking about how do you refocus on the customer. And what the question is for both of you, have you guys managed to, in your mind and with the actions of your company, to instill a culture in which the customer experience and the customer expectations are truly at the top of the chain? And how can you, I don't know, provide an example of that maybe?
So who would like to go first?
Well, Dylan's muted, so why don't you try it?
Okay. Well, like I said, we basically start our journey with customer experience in mind. So everything I do or everything we do have to be benefit and add value to the end consumer. And that's why I'm talking about we build system to make it fastest for consumer. We make sure that our products have a direct and the claim process is seamless and that is reliable. And that the last part is the price. We make sure that we benchmark our prices against the best or the some of the competitors that we have, just to make sure that we always have fair price for our customers. So we're doing all of those things, and that is the core of Tapley value.
Perfect. Dylan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. It's really hard. Instilling a new culture in an organization means that you have to change what you reward and what you celebrate and what you sanction. And it's interesting when one thing which actually quite shocked me when I was back in kind of as an investor is when I heard about Amazon. When Amazon team kind of managed to get this was about 15 years ago, when they managed to get an item cheaper than the competition, even if they were selling it at a loss, they would high five each other because it was like, yeah, we've actually achieved something great for the customer. Now, that might sound really kind of, and the reason it was quite shocking for me at the time is that I was kind of working with a mindset of, profitability and making sure that your business thrives by making lots of cash. And so, but then you can clearly see where Amazon is now, and where many of its competitors are being left by the wayside, and now they're coming after new competitors. And but their approach and the way they think about the world and look at the world is very deeply consumer centric. I think that's in my mind, and that means that from a consumer, from a kind of insurance perspective, it's, are you doing the right thing for the customer every time? If that customer, and the way I kind of go about it with my team is if that were your grandmother, how would you want that to be kind of playing out? And my team tend to like their grandmothers, so it works. But I think you get the gist of what I'm saying.
Sure, excellent. So next question, and this one is, it actually is a good question for both of you, but it was asked specifically to Janthana, so I'll let her have the first crack at it. Regarding your marketing efforts, have you been able to gather various customer profiling information on your targets? And if so, how do you maintain and monitor that going forward?
For GDPR purposes, we do not collect customer data, not for freelancers, not for individual anyway. However, we do check the businesses, because a lot of businesses have a social media profiles. So we check them at onboarding process. And a lot of what we do is B2B, so it's easy for us to kind of check their development. And we often do this because we wanted to know what type of risk we actually underwrite, and it's a very good way to work out what the business does using social media information. So that's, yeah. But for individual, we do not collect any data. And the only data we collect is the one that we need for the underwriting purpose.
Perfect. Dylan, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah. Well, we speak to our customers every day. So that's how we get to understand and make sure that we're relevant, and it's a constant and ongoing program of making sure that when you're trying something new, is how they responding to that, how they like it or not, what they want better. And that's a constant, I suppose, improvement program that we've got on board, and that's just truly by, connecting and getting engaged with our customers. That's what we talk about, engagement. Every insurer wants to be engaging with their customers, but they don't even make the first step of actually speaking to them, which I always find quite surprising.
So that's actually a perfect lead into the next question, which this is one that I find very interesting, and I think we could have a lot of discussion just around this. Both of you are talking about marketing plans and companies that are built around the customer, but they're very granular. So as your companies grow, talk about the plans, opportunities, and challenges of maintaining that relationship with the customer at scale. How do you keep that personal touch as the company grows, and how do you build that plan into the business plan for your company?
So I mean, the engaging and discussing with your customers on a regular basis, whether you've got 5 million customers or 5, you can. I mean, of course, you're not going to be touching all 5 million customers if you've got that volume, but you certainly can sample, and you can still have that effective engagement with customers. Eventually, you might not never go through all your customers, but the key is actually understanding who they are and what they're needing. And I think that's the crux and the essence of consumer centricity.
Excellent. Janthana?
Yes. For us, we just make sure that we do, things a little bit better than our peer in order to attract customer to come back. So offering, like good policy at a good price in the most convenient way, I think that's kind of helps. And I try, it's really funny to say this because I try to have as little engagement with my customer as possible, because I learned this from my own personal experience that as consumer, I do not want to be contacted by insurance at all. Only when I really need something that only when I need to buy insurance that I want someone to contact me. So this is where, we're kind of building this AI to be able to help us work out when customers are most likely to need insurance so that we can target them as of when they need it. So that is basically one of our targets. But for now, we keep our communication at bare minimum, and we only would interact with them on kind of social media on a passive basis. But what we tend to do is that we offer more content, more FAQ to help customers to make informed choice whether Tapley is the right product for them.
So you made a comment there that really is very interesting to me, and I'd like to hear both of you talk about it briefly. You made a comment about when you were a customer, you really didn't want to interact with your insurance carrier, and yet both of you have companies that approach interactions with the customers very differently. Tell me a little bit about how you go about trying to figure out what the customer wants as far as interaction. Do you work on trying to identify customers that want more interaction versus those that don't? Or do you just take a single approach to all customers and hope that it's the right one? Janthana?
Yes, we basically take kind of, bottom-up approach. We work our way from talking to platform owners. So usually most of our business comes through affiliate partnership, marketplace, or it could be kind of network, so on, so on. So we talk with those who are the leaders of the communities to see what type of issue and problem those communities have, for example. And then, based on that, we look at their activities and see what type of risk they have, the main pain point and issues. And then we work out, the type of product, strategy, and process that we need to put in place to solve all their problems. So that's basically how we go. but everything derives from customer. Basically, we put customer needs first, and then we work out from that problem how do we solve it as a an insurtech intermediary.
Perfect. And Dylan, how about with you guys? It seems like your approach is very customer centric all the time. How do you work out whether customers appreciate that or not?
So I'm going to apologize because I'm going to use another kind of terminology that is overused, but we do have a lean approach to it, which is we test and learn. So and we do test different ways of communicating and engaging, and some work, some don't. We find out what worked, what didn't work, with what population, and what was relevant, and it's only by testing and learning that we can actually continue improving and continue changing the way consumers look, engage, and interact with their insurance provider. I mean, we're here to actually restore consumer trust. We can't just do the same old. So we have to be looking at different ways of doing it, and there's never a silver bullet which gives you the final answer. And this is something that I'm kind of acutely aware, and every aspect of our business works on a test and learn aspect. Now, of course, it's always testing and with the boundaries and confines of the regulation, and so that's. But I think the benefit here that we have, I think, is that we don't have to wait several weeks, days before compliance gives us a green light on what we want to be doing. It's within the day. We've got an idea. We know what can be done or not, and then it's and you can start executing.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's talk. Let's maybe change a little bit, and we'll go back. And this question has to do with something we kind of touched on earlier about referrals and word of mouth. But talk a little bit about how important word of mouth and referral marketing is, and then maybe talk about how you can encourage your customers to become your best marketing partner.
Your job. Your job well is the first way of doing it. You're never going to get a customer refer you or talk about you unless they've got an exceptional experience. And thinking that you're going to have, because you've just had an easy onboarding experience, that is not enough. You have to have an amazing customer experience when you claim. And so that means step number one for most insurers is actually overhaul entirely the way they actually do their claims. And that's why I have a lot of empathy for the marketing departments, because they can't have they need to be able to effectively drive the changes that are required across the value chain of insurance to make sure that, to make their lives easier. And that's really, really hard with incumbent organizations.
Janthana, do you have any thoughts about encouraging your customers to help you market?
Yes, I would probably reiterate what Dylan was just mentioning, that customer experience is the key, and that extends to claim, by the way. Whether or not we are responsible for claim directly, we have to make sure that the claim process is seamless, as well as the kind of the buying quote process, because we not only we need to make sure that our product is superior, flexible, we need to be trusted also by customers, I think, by doing what we say we will. If we say that we can offer, flexible insurance products, then that's exactly what we should do. And I think when people know that they can trust you to do what we say we will, that's when they can recommend us to other people. And that's how I do personally. When I, purchase something online, if I'm happy with the product and the services, I tend to tell people about it. And I think a lot of people would do that as well.
And further to that, which is, I think, starts as the basics, then we're fortunate to have a model which has a viral element to it, but that's because that's in design, as opposed to I think when I think about the incumbent insurers, I think the only thing they can really start by doing is, and I think that's the thing which is actually experience number one. Before you can start wanting to engage or get them to refer or even talk about you, make sure that you do them provide them a great service, and they're loyal, and then they'll talk about you because they'll say, oh, I had a good experience. And I've had that from people who who might, and it's actually I think where brands, so it's a different market than the mass market, but like Hiscox are able to truly just pay out when it takes place, and that the customers they have tend to be quite loyal because if they've had an experience of a claim with it, if it's good, then they're not going to want to switch.
Yeah, excellent point. Let's talk a little bit about startup mentality, marketing budgets, and things like that. If you're starting a company, or if someone is starting a company, what's your advice to them to be able to market effectively to an audience if they really don't have the budget to do something on a broader scale? What's the most effective way that you can think of to really get out and start to drive business growth?
I think it is all about figuring out who your core customer base is. And unfortunately, you're going to have to be testing in the beginning to find out exactly. Yes, you've designed it around for a certain population and a certain USPs, which would have been driven by understanding that customer base in the first place. You've got you should have a good understanding of who that core customer is. And in doing so, you should have a good understanding of what channels and what means you can access them. And you don't need to be, I think that as a startup, you can waste a lot of money in just trying to do blanket marketing, but that's just not going to work. You need to be targeting that core customer base that really believes and are going to be net promoters of your business. And that will help you then in that they will naturally, as a result, kind of end up referring you. And that then helps you in your growth, which then helps you in your raising more money, to then be able to go and spend on more channels and broaden out that customer base.
Excellent. Janthana, what are your thoughts?
Our marketing strategy was based on 3 phases. The first one is basically know your customer. So we have a customer persona mapped out so that we know exactly who we are targeting. And then we basically build the overall strategy of how we can target those individual or businesses. And the third part is we test those hypotheses or the strategy that we implement and to see which one works, which one not. And then we put more money in the one that does work. So that's basically the process in which we have adopted.
Perfect. All right, so I have a couple of other questions, and this first one right here is actually targeted more towards Dylan. The question really focuses more around social insurance as a concept, and the question was around the payback philosophy that you have. And first of all, how does that work into your business model? And secondly, what does that do as far as driving customer retention and customer engagement?
So I suppose, how does it part of our business model? It's at the core of it. It's pretty. It's definitely part of the, I suppose, the DNA of our proposition. And what it does is it does what you'd expect it to do, which means that customers are more engaged and do have kind of the behaviors that the original mutuals had, because effectively what we're creating is kind of networks of micro mutuals, and so so it has got it's got benefits for the consumer, it's got benefits for us, and so as a result, it's just a win-win situation.
Excellent. Okay, next question. And this is one that you can both handle. So Janthana, I'll let you kind of start it. When you're thinking about the type of insurance that's being sold, do you have to think about a different marketing approach depending on what it is you're trying to insure? And if so, do you have any, can you think of any examples maybe about how you would market one type of insurance differently than another type?
I think it's down to the customer profiling and mapping that with the product that I most needed. I think that's important. For example, employer liability, that's pretty much going to be predominantly SME. For example, then obviously we will have keyword that we target SME and also can just only focus on SME that we can serve. So that's how we would go about and do that.
Okay, Dylan, do you have any thoughts about that?
No, I think it's.
I know it's not really part of your business model.
No, it is because we're looking at kind of adding new lines already, and even with our existing mobile phone insurance, we've got interest from corporates as well as consumers, and there are different ways of. There are clearly it's understanding what are the pain points that you're solving for your customer base, and presenting those the USPs which address them. I think that's kind of sounds like basic marketing approach really. So sorry, it's okay. Kind of.
Okay, excellent. Okay, Janthana, I'll let you start off on this one. The question centers around. Both of you have touched on the need for some transparency with your customer. And as you get more and more transparency with the customer, at what point does that start to interfere with fraud protection? And is that a concern? And if so, how are you addressing that?
I think because we focus on commercial insurance products and predominantly for the white collar professions, this group of people are less prone to conduct fraud, purely because most of them would know or would be in a regulated industries or in a professional bodies, members of some sort. So they would already be aware of the fraud will cost them more professionally than the gain that they would get. Because I'm talking about if you raise a claim, for example, professional indemnity, if you raise a claim, there will be an investigation, and they know that. We are not yet, reached the stage where the claim could be completely automated and paid within seconds. That is not what we can offer today, purely because of that, fraud detection. It needs to go through a lot of investigations and due diligence process before certain claim is payout. So that is basically for it involves a lot of human factor as opposed to allowing customers to be able to make claims. And I think that's in many ways deter people from making claims because they know that if they do, someone would look at that case. And that's, yes. So we're not in the stage where we need to worry too much about fraud. And if customer deliberately not providing us with the right information, effectively their insurance would be invalidated. And obviously that is not the purpose of them buying insurance.
Sure.
So I've got 2 points on that. The first one is clearly our model does address the fraud aspect with that transparency, because actually that transparency reduces the fraud because moral hazard is being addressed by the fact that you can get money back if you don't claim. So suddenly there's an incentive not to claim, which historically hasn't been since the original mutuals. And the other aspect is actually I'm actually baffled by the incumbents. No one ever mentions fraud. We actually are transparent and we actually tell customers there is fraud out there, which actually is why we then develop technologies which help us detect and deter it. and we sell the benefits of those technologies to the consumers, because we can then educate them on the fact that, you know, because of fraud, others have to pay higher premiums. And so I was actually quite surprised to see the reluctance of addressing or even raising the consideration of fraud by insurance companies when presenting their proposition or engaging with customers. And as a result, what they do is just hide it in the processes, in a kind of very obscure, opaque way, which then ends up being a very painful process for customers, genuine customers.
Sure. Actually, that's a very great explanation. So next question, Dylan, I'll let you start on this one and it will apply to both of you. So this question actually makes an observation that, based upon the descriptions that you have both provided, it appears as though Sosure really promotes a pull marketing approach, whereas Tapley promotes a little bit more of a push marketing approach. So given that, for each of you, if you had to change your current marketing approach, what do you think would be the most likely change that you would employ for that?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question, because I suppose why would I change my marketing approach if it's working?
Would
it be to switch from pull to push?
Yeah, would you consider that? And if so, what would be the implications for your business?
No, you'd have to. Well, you know, it would be naive to think that it's a pure pull. I mean, of course, we've got a pull factor, but you're still competing with other providers. So there is also a push element. So I suppose our marketing is across the board on both pull and push. So I'm not sure I would change what we're doing right now. I think what will change as we grow further and then enter new lines of businesses, then we'll have to basically kind of apply, figure out the right new channels for the customers that we're targeting in those for those new segments.
Okay, perfect. Janthana, do you have any thoughts around how you would market differently than the way you do now?
I think from the social media perspective, pull marketing is very suited for us, because I think, you know, like a lot of customers would prefer just to search for insurance when they need it. So we just have to make sure that we got our social media presence enough for them to be able to search for us when they need it. So that's basically the part. However, the sales B2B sales marketing, then obviously we can be more proactive. This is where we really need to kind of go out and be proactive with telling people about Tapley and our value, so that they are aware of our presence in the market and what we will bring to their communities. I think that is important to do that more proactively.
Excellent.
Because the reality is of insurance is, I mean, I think unless it's regulated, it's because of regulatory required, so it's car insurance. Any other insurance is optional. So you have to develop you do have to develop both pull and push on those products, because even if you are just purely in a market where there is a pull through regulatory compliance, means that you by law you need to have that insurance product, and then therefore people are going to be looking for you. You still need to make sure that the customers know and want you over the others. So I suppose I think we're in a way, for marketeers, I think insurance is a kind of a great sector in terms of challenge, because you're constantly having to kind of get the right balance, because swamping customers with loads of content is going to annoy them, but equally if they don't have but then you still need to kind of increase the awareness of your brand. And so it's finding the right balance across different channels and medium to make sure that you're getting the best return on your investment.
Excellent. So I think we're at the point now we've kind of run through our list of questions. So what I'd like to do, if either one of you have any other comments that you'd like to make, I'd like to give you the opportunity. We've covered a lot of ground. We've talked a lot about different ways to market, customer expectations, different ways to reach out and connect with your customers that perhaps traditional marketing wouldn't have normally approached. So Janthana, I'll start with you. Are there any additional things that you think the audience would benefit from hearing about the marketing approach at Tapley?
I think, we kind of, what we do is that we don't reinventing a new marketing strategy, but only observe the one that work well. And I think the incumbent already established what worked well for them. We just have to replicate that and do it a little bit more, cost effectively. And that's what we have done. So I don't have much to add. And even, like if we were to list out all our marketing strategy, it would be the one that the incumbent already adopted. Most of them anyway.
Perfect. Dylan, what are your thoughts?
Test and learn. I think I have a different view on that. I think it's, yes, there are ways that people have been getting in touch with customers, but the reality is the consumer or the customer as a whole is not really, is always changing. And so, something which might have been working very well at some point won't work at a different point. When you think about, I suppose, kind of mail marketing, I talk about snail mail. There's and actually there are cycles across different medium and channels. And I thought, in my mind, we can never be complacent about thinking there's channels that work well and others that don't. If you look, I love looking at the media, at the kind of music industry, for when I think about that, because overall the music industry hasn't actually lost that much of its income. It's just the distribution of that income by channel has changed dramatically. It used to be a lot more about events, and then moved into the format, the medium of kind of records and then tapes and then CDs, and the events weren't that lucrative. But then with the avenue of the digital medium, and files being so free and easy to access, suddenly events are where they make most of the money, and the tracks are just effectively the teasers, as opposed to, for a long period, the events were the teasers and the records were the money makers. So I think that's quite drastic in the music industry. It has been, but I think in marketing, it feels to me that different channels behave in similar ways.
Excellent. Well, Dylan and Janthana, I cannot thank you both enough for your insights. I know I've learned a lot, and I'm sure that those that were listening have learned a lot as well. And thank you for all of the participants with the questions. We got a great variety of questions. It was nice to be able to really cover all of the different aspects of marketing and how today's customer really benefits from various approaches to communication and engagement. So at this point, I think I'd like to turn it back over to Graham so he can close us up.
Greg, thanks so much. And of course, I'd like to extend my thanks as well to Janthana and Dylan for their insights. It's been extraordinarily interesting hearing about their businesses and some of the core values and methodologies around that. I'd just add an extra note to say, do keep in touch, anybody. I know we're all on LinkedIn, and I'm sure the guys would welcome any communications or touching base in that respect. And I would also say that this webinar is part of a larger piece, which is the Connected Insurance Europe meeting later in the year in 15th and 16th of May in Amsterdam. Do have a look at the Insurance Nexus website /Connected Europe for more information on that. The event itself we'll be looking at innovative product development, and as part of that, really trying to communicate the value and the hard work that has gone into insurance products and services and the innovation which has been going on in the background. So do take a look at that. Get in touch if you'd like any more information. And have a fantastic weekend, everybody. And that's goodbye from all of us.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.